I'm Samantha Wilson, 28 years old and the only one in my family without a spouse or kids. For as long as I can remember, I've been the default helper at every gathering. This year, I was actually excited about Christmas with my family until I overheard my siblings plotting. They had it all planned out, dumped their 5 kids on me while they enjoyed an adults-only Christmas day. The betrayal cut deep, but this time would be different. This year, I decided to change my plans. Before I dive into what happened, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up to family who took advantage of you. My family has always been close-knit on the surface: Sunday dinners, group chats that never stop buzzing, and holidays that require weeks of planning. There's my older brother James, 34, married to Rebecca for 7 years with 5-year-old twins Max and Maya. Then my sister Catherine, 32, with her husband Mike and their 3 kids. Emily, who's 8, Lucas, who's 6, and little Zoe, who just turned 3. Our parents, Linda and Richard, are the proud grandparents who host nearly every family event at their spacious suburban home. From the outside, we probably look like the perfect American family, but beneath that carefully crafted exterior lies a dynamic where I've somehow been cast as the eternal support system. The reliable single one with so much free time, because I don't have children. Samantha can help with that became such a common phrase at family gatherings that I started to feel more like household staff than a family member. At Thanksgiving just a month ago, I spent 3 hours washing dishes and cleaning the kitchen while everyone else watched football in the living room. When I finally joined them, Catherine handed me her sleeping toddler without even asking if I minded. "You're so good with the kids, Sam," she said, already turning back to the TT. "Zoe only settles like that for you." It was a compliment wrapped in exploitation, a specialty in my family. Don't get me wrong, I adore my nieces and nephews. Max has my sense of humor, always ready with a joke that's surprisingly clever for a 5-year-old. Mia loves books as much as I do, often bringing me her favorites to read. Emily's artistic talent amazes me, her drawings already showing real promise. Lucas is my little science buddy, always asking questions about how things work. And Zoe, with her curly hair and infectious giggle, has had me wrapped around her finger since day one. But loving them doesn't mean I want to be their unpaid nanny every time their parents want a break. My career as a marketing executive at a growing tech company requires long hours and significant mental energy. I've worked hard to earn my recent promotion to senior manager, but my accomplishments are routinely downplayed at family gatherings. It's easier to focus on career when you don't have real responsibilities, James once commented after I mentioned a successful campaign I'd led. I've tried setting boundaries. Last Easter, I told my family I could only stay until 3 p.m. because I had plans with friends. Somehow I still ended up being the last one there at 7 p.m., helping my mom clean up while my siblings left early because the kids were tired. This Christmas was supposed to be different. I had planned everything meticulously, thoughtful gifts purchased well in advance, a beautiful outfit for Christmas dinner, and even prepared talking points to deflect the inevitable questions about my dating life and when I planned to settle down. I had decorated my apartment with a small but elegant tree, hung stockings even though I live alone, and placed twinkling lights around my windows to capture that magical holiday feeling. I'd spent weeks looking forward to Christmas, imagining the children's faces when they opened their presents, the familiar taste of my mom's cinnamon rolls on Christmas morning, and even the chows of having everyone together. Despite the familiar patterns, I still cherished these moments with my family. But that was before I overheard what they really thought of me, before I discovered I wasn't a beloved family member to them, but a convenience-free childcare packaged in sisterly, daughterly obligation. It happened 3 days before Christmas, at the traditional pre-holiday family dinner my mother hosts every year. The house smelled like pine from the massive Christmas tree in the corner and my mom's famous lasagna baking in the oven. Christmas music played softly in the background, and the kids were in the basement playroom where my parents had set up an elaborate train set. After helping my mom set the table, I realized I was parched and headed to the kitchen for water. The dining room and kitchen shared a wall with the living room, separated by a hallway with surprisingly good acoustics. As I filled my glass, I heard my name mentioned in the living room where my siblings and their spouses were having drinks before dinner. Samantha's always been so good with the kids, Catherine was saying. They adore her. That's why this works out perfectly, James replied, his voice slightly lowered, but still perfectly audible to me in the kitchen. Rebecca, I haven't had a day to ourselves since the twins were born. A whole Christmas Day adults-only ski trip is exactly what we need. My hand froze on the glass. Ski trip. This was the first I'd heard of any ski trip. Mike's parents got us those spa passes for our anniversary. Catherine chimed in. They expire at the end of the year, and Christmas Day has the deluxe package available. It's the only day that worked with our schedules. And Sam doesn't have any real plans anyway, Rebecca added. She always just comes here. But shouldn't we actually ask her first? This was my mother, her voice carrying a note of concern. 5 children is a lot to handle, even for Samantha. Mom, if we ask, she might make other plans. This was Catherine again. Better to just tell her Christmas morning when everyone's already here. What's she going to do? Say no and ruin Christmas for the kids? The cold calculation in my sister's voice made my stomach clench. They were deliberately planning to ambush me so I couldn't refuse. We'll make it up to her, James said casually. Maybe get her a gift card or something. A gift card? For spending my entire Christmas Day babysitting while they went skiing into the spa. She never minds, Mike said. That's the beauty of it. Sam's always happy to help out, and it's not like she has kids of her own to worry about. Rebecca added, with a laugh that sliced through me like a knife. Or any prospects on the horizon. They laughed. All of them except my mother, who offered a week. Well, I suppose it would be nice for you all to have some adult time. I stood frozen in the kitchen, water overflowing from my glass into the sink. My chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped a belt around it and pulled. The room tilted slightly as the full impact hit me. My own family was conspiring against me, planning to manipulate me, and mocking my single status in the same conversation. Without conscious thought, I set down the glass, grabbed my purse from the counter where I'd left it, and walked silently to the front door. No one saw me leave. No one called out to stop me. I slipped out into the cold December night, tears already freezing on my cheeks as I fumbled for my car keys. The 20-minute drive home passed in a blur. My phone dinged several times, probably my family wondering where I'd disappeared to. But I couldn't bring myself to look at it. Once safely inside my apartment, I collapsed onto my couch, surrounded by the cheerful Christmas decorations that now seemed to mock me. Only then did I check my phone. Mom, where did you go? We're about to have dinner. Catherine, did you leave? Mom's worried. James, everything ok, dinner's ready. Not one of them asked if they'd done something wrong. Not one considered that I might have overheard their conversation. They were just annoyed that their helper had vanished before performing her expected duties. I turned off my phone and curled up on the couch, letting the tears flow freely. All those years of showing up, of helping out, of loving their children as if they were my own. And this was how they valued me. Not as a sister or a daughter, but as convenient, free childcare. The perfect sucker who could be manipulated into giving up her holiday because she didn't have real responsibilities or a family of her own. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. Not just the scheme itself, but the casual way they discussed it. The assumption that my time wasn't valuable, that my Christmas didn't matter as much as theirs, the realization that they saw my unmarried, childless state not as a valid life choice, but as a resource they could exploit. I cried until I had no tears left, then lay in the darkness watching the lights from my Christmas tree blink on and off, casting colorful shadows on my ceiling. By the time exhaustion finally pulled me into sleep, a resolve had begun to form in my mind. This year would be different. This year, I would not be the family doormat. This year I would choose myself. I called in sick to work the next morning. After a night of fitful sleep, my eyes were swollen, my head pounded, and the thought of sitting through marketing meetings pretending everything was fine seemed impossible. My boss, Diane, was understanding I had plenty of unused sick days, and the office would be closing early for the holidays anyway. Alone in my apartment with the whole day stretching before me, I finally turned my phone back on. The barrage of messages continued. Mom, sweetheart, is everything okay? We were worried when you disappeared. Dad, your mother's concerned. Call us. Catherine, what happened to you last night? Not cool to just vanish like that. James, I'm upset. Call her. Still not one question about whether they had done something wrong. No awareness at all, just concern that I disrupted their evening and upset our mother. I typed and deleted a dozen responses before settling on a simple message to my mom. Not feeling well. Needed to go home, I'll call later. Then I did something I rarely allow myself to do. I sat with my feelings, the hurt, the anger, the sense of betrayal, the complicated grief of realizing your family sees you differently than you see yourself. Around noon, I called my best friend Rachel. Unlike me, Rachel had firm boundaries with her family, something I'd always secretly admired but convinced myself I couldn't emulate because my family is different. They did what? Rachel's outrage was exactly what I needed. Oh hell no, Sam. That is beyond disrespectful. I know, I said, curling up tighter under the blanket on my couch. But the kids. They'll be so disappointed if I'm not there on Christmas. Stop, Rachel said firmly. The kids are not your responsibility. Their parents are the ones disappointing them by making plans without securing childcare first. But. No buts. This is exactly why they keep taking advantage of you, Sam. You always put everyone else first. She was right, and deep down, I knew it. Memories flooded back of other times my family had taken my availability for granted. The time Catherine called at midnight asking me to take Emily to school the next morning because she forgot she had an early meeting. The 3 weekends in a row I'd watched the twins while James and Rebecca went on house hunting trips. The family vacation where I ended up staying in the rental house with all the kids every night while everyone else went out to nice restaurants. What would you do? I asked Rachel. Honestly, I'd make other plans and let them figure it out. They're counting on you having nothing better to do than save them. Prove them wrong. After we hung up, I sat with my laptop open, staring at a search bar. On impulse, I typed, last-minute Christmas getaways. To my surprise, there were options. A cancellation had opened up a cozy cabin at a mountain resort about 3 hours away. It had a fireplace, a small kitchen, and came with access to the resort's Christmas dinner and holiday activities. The photos showed pine trees heavy with snow, twinkling lights, and comfortable furnishings that looked like they belonged in a Hallmark movie. My finger hovered over the Book Now button. The rate was expensive, I'd be using a chunk of my savings but not unaffordable. The cabin was available from Christmas Eve through December 27th. I closed the laptop without booking. Was I really considering spending Christmas alone out of spite? Wouldn't that just hurt the children who hadn't done anything wrong? Then I remembered Rebecca's mocking tone. It's not like she has kids of her own to worry about. Or any prospects on the horizon. I reopened the laptop and stared at the booking page again. My phone rang. Catherine. I let it go to voicemail. She texted immediately after. Catherine. Hey, can you come over tomorrow and help me wrap presents? Mike's useless at it and I have so many to do. No, please. No acknowledgement that she was asking for a favor. Just the assumption that I would say yes, as always. I looked at the booking page again, then at the text. With sudden clarity, I realized that nothing would change unless I changed it. I hit Book Now and entered my credit card information. The confirmation page noted, non-refundable reservation. For a moment, my finger hovered over the final confirmation button. Once I did this, there was no going back. I thought of all the Christmases I'd spent catering to everyone else's needs. I thought of the ski trip and spa day they'd planned while conspiring to manipulate me. I thought of the years of taking advantage. I clicked Confirm Reservation. A weight lifted off my shoulders as the confirmation email arrived in my inbox. For the first time since overhearing their conversation, I felt something other than hurt and anger. I felt powerful. I had made a choice for myself, prioritizing my own happiness. I opened my closet and pulled out my suitcase, setting it on the bed with purpose. Then I went to my desk and took out Christmas cards for each of my nieces and nephews. I would still get them gifts. This wasn't about punishing them. But this year, the gifts would come with notes explaining why Aunt Sam wouldn't be there on Christmas Day. I hadn't decided exactly when to tell my family about my change of plans. Part of me wanted to wait until Christmas morning just to give them a taste of their own medicine. But I knew that would be unfair to the children. I decided I would tell them at the Christmas Eve family dinner. 24 hours notice seemed appropriate for people who had planned to give me no notice at all. As I began to pack, my phone buzzed with a text from James. James, the twins keep asking what you're getting them for Christmas. They're so excited to see you. We all are. I set the phone down without responding, a new resolve hardening in my heart. This Christmas would indeed be different, just not in the way my family had planned. The week before Christmas brought an onslaught of communication from my family, each message more transparent than the last now that I knew their true intentions. Catherine called on Sunday, her voice suspiciously sweet. Sam, I've been thinking about Christmas Day. You know how chaotic it gets with all the kids. Armandum, I replied noncommittally, folding laundry with my phone on speaker. Mike and I barely get a moment to breathe, she continued. The holidays are so stressful with kids. That sounds difficult, I said, not offering any solutions as I normally would. There was a pause. Well, anyway, she finally said. The kids can't wait to see their favorite aunt. On Monday, James sent a group text with pictures of the twins decorating cookies. Max says these are for Aunt Sam. He wants you to help them build a gingerbread house on Christmas. I sent back a heart emoji but nothing more. No promise to fulfill Max's wish. Tuesday brought my mother calling to confirm plans. You'll be at our house by 9 on Christmas morning, right, sweetheart? Dad's making his special pancakes. I'm still figuring out my schedule, Mom, I replied, which was technically true even though my plans were already set. What schedule? She asked, confusion clear in her voice. It's Christmas. You're coming here like always. I'll let you know, I said, changing the subject quickly. Wednesday was my day off, which I spent shopping for my nieces and nephews. Despite everything, I wanted them to have special gifts from me. For Max, a build-your-own robot kit that I knew would fascinate him. For Mia, a collection of chapter books about a girl detective. Emily would get high-quality art supplies, Lucas a telescope for backyard stargazing, and little Zoe a stuffed elephant with a matching storybook. Elephants had been her latest obsession. As I carefully selected each gift, wrapping them in festive paper with elaborate bows, I wrote personalized cards explaining that Aunt Sam had a special trip this Christmas, but would have her own celebration with them when she returned. I tucked a photo of the resort into each card so they could see where I was going. It wasn't their fault their parents saw me as free childcare rather than a person with my own needs. Thursday brought the most transparent attempt yet. My father called, his voice gruff with forced casualness. Your mother wants to know if you can come over early on Christmas Day. She's wondering if you can help her get things ready before everyone arrives. What time is everyone coming over? I asked. Oh, around noon, I think, he said. Noon. Conveniently after they planned to spring their request for all-day babysitting on me. I'll have to see, Dad, I said. Well, your mother is counting on you, he replied, a hint of steel entering his voice. You know how important these family gatherings are to her. The guilt trip might have worked a week ago. Now it just strengthened my resolve. Friday was my last day at work before the holiday break, and I was surprisingly productive, fueled by a new sense of self-respect that carried over into my professional life. I found myself speaking up in meetings and setting boundaries with colleagues who typically dumped last-minute work on me, another pattern I hadn't fully recognized until now. My phone continued to buzz throughout the day. Catherine, Emily is practicing a song to play for you on Christmas. James, the twins keep asking how many sleeps until they see Aunt Sam. Mom, don't forget to bring that cranberry salad everyone loves. And can you come over a bit early to help with setup? With each message, they tightened what they thought was their hold on me, unaware that I had already slipped free. Saturday, Christmas Eve arrived bright and cold. I packed my car with my suitcase for the resort, the carefully wrapped presents for the children, and a dish of cranberry salad for dinner, my last concession to family expectations. My cabin reservation began that evening, but I had decided to attend the family dinner first, both to give the children their gifts and to inform everyone of my plans. As I drove to my parents' house, a final text came from my mother. Mom, Dad, and I were talking, and we're so grateful for how helpful you always are especially with the little ones. We're counting on you tomorrow, sweetheart. James and Catherine could really use the break. There it was, the closest they would come to revealing their scheme before springing it on me. I set my phone aside without responding, my hands tight on the steering wheel. When I arrived at my parents' house, delicious smells wafted from the kitchen, Christmas music played, and the tree glittered with ornaments collected over decades of family Christmases. For a moment, standing on the doorstep with arms full of gifts and cranberry salad, I nearly wavered. Then I remembered. What's she going to do, say no and ruin Christmas for the kids? I rang the doorbell, straightened my shoulders, and prepared for the most difficult family dinner of my life. My mother opened the door with a wooden spoon in hand and flour dusting her Christmas sweater. There you are? I was beginning to worry. She hugged me with one arm, careful not to get flour on my coat. Everyone's in the living room. Dinner's in 30 minutes. The living room was a scene from a holiday card, fire crackling, tree twinkling, children playing with new toys they'd been allowed to open early. My father sat in his recliner watching a Christmas movie with the volume low, while James and Rebecca shared the love seat, scrolling through their phones. Catherine and Mike were on the couch, Mike dozing while Catherine supervised the children's play. Aunt Sam. The chorus of small voices hit me first, followed by the physical impact of small bodies as my nieces and nephews swarmed me. Despite everything, my heart melted at their genuine excitement. I made you a picture. Emily thrust a drawing into my hands, a surprisingly good rendition of me and her making cookies together. Look, I lost a tooth. Max grinned to show the gap. Elephant. Zoe held up her stuffed toy that went everywhere with her. For the next few minutes, I focused solely on the children, listening to their stories and admiring their accomplishments. When I finally extracted myself and placed my gifts under the tree, I noticed the adults exchanging meaningful glances. Those are a lot of presents, Sam, Rebecca remarked. You really shouldn't have gone overboard. It's just something small for each of the kids, I said. Actually, I'd like them to open them tonight instead of tomorrow. Catherine frowned. But it's tradition to open presents on Christmas morning. I know, but these are special. I held my ground, meeting her eyes steadily. An awkward silence fell, broken by my mother announcing dinner was ready. As we moved to the dining room, I caught James whispering to Catherine, both of them glancing at me with furrowed brows. Dinner began pleasantly enough with my father's traditional Christmas Eve toast and everyone admiring the spread my mother had prepared. The children chattered excitedly about Santa's imminent arrival, while the adults made small talk about work, neighbors, and the weather. It wasn't until dessert that they made their move. So Sam, Catherine began casually, we were thinking about tomorrow. Here it comes, I thought. The kids are always up so early on Christmas, she continued. And they'll be wired from all the excitement and sugar. James jumped in. We thought it might be nice for the adults to have a little break in the afternoon. He smiled in what I suppose he thought was a winning manner. Maybe hit the slopes for a few hours while you hang out with the kids here. Rebecca added, they've been talking about spending time with Aunt Sam all week. The calculated manipulation was so obvious now that I knew to look for it. Using the children's affection for me as leverage, framing it as a few hours, when I knew they planned to be gone all day, presenting it as if the idea had just occurred to them, rather than a scheme they'd been planning for days. Mike, less subtle than the others, said, we got Catherine spa passes that expire tomorrow. It's the only day that works with the holiday schedule. My mother began clearing plates with too much focus, avoiding my eyes. My father suddenly became very interested in his coffee cup. 5 pairs of adult eyes turned to me, waiting for my usual acquiescence. The children, blessedly, were too absorbed in their desserts to follow the conversation. I took a deep breath and set down my fork carefully. I'm sorry, but I won't be available for babysitting tomorrow. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the children seemed to sense the shift in atmosphere, their chatter dying down. What do you mean, not available? Catherine asked, her voice sharp. I have other plans, I said simply. James laughed, though it sounded forced. Come on, Sam. It's Christmas. What other plans could you have? The dismissive assumption that my time couldn't possibly be filled with anything important stoked my courage. I've booked a cabin at Pine Ridge Resort for the holiday weekend. I'm leaving tonight after dinner and coming back on the 27th. Rebecca's mouth actually fell open. You're going on vacation, alone, at Christmas? Yes, I said, meeting her gaze steadily. But what about family tradition? My mother finally spoke, her voice wavering. What about the children? Catherine demanded, not bothering to hide her anger now. They're expecting you to be here. The children will have their parents with them, I replied, my voice calm despite my racing heart, unless you were planning to leave them with me while you went skiing and to the spa. The guilty looks that passed between them confirmed what I already knew. You can't just bail on Christmas, James said, his tone somewhere between demanding and pleading. Everyone's counting on you being here. Counting on me to provide free childcare, you mean, I said. Yes, I heard you all planning it the other night. Another stunned silence descended on the table. My mother's face drained of color. You heard us talking, she asked quietly. Every word, I confirmed. About how you'd spring it on me Christmas morning when it would be too late for me to say no. About how I don't have real responsibilities or prospects on the horizon so my time doesn't matter. Catherine at least had the grace to look ashamed. James stared at his plate. Rebecca and Mike exchanged uncomfortable glances. We were going to get you a gift card, James offered weakly. A gift card, I repeated. For spending my entire Christmas day watching 5 children while you all went off to have fun. Kids, why don't you go play in the living room? My father suddenly suggested. Once they had scrambled away, he turned to me. Samantha, I'm sure your siblings didn't mean any harm. Didn't they? I asked. They deliberately planned to manipulate me. They've been doing it for years, and I've always gone along with it because I love the kids and I love this family. But I'm done being taken for granted. We don't take you for granted, Catherine protested, but her voice lacked conviction. When was the last time any of you offered to help me with something, or even asked how my work is going without dismissing my career as less important than yours? When was the last time you considered that I might have plans or needs of my own? No one answered. I've booked this trip as a gift to myself, I continued. I've brought presents for the children, which I'd like them to open tonight so I can see their faces. I'll call them tomorrow to wish them a Merry Christmas. But I will not be changing my plans. This is ridiculous, James said, pushing back from the table. You're ruining Christmas over a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding, I said firmly. It was a deliberate plan that showed exactly how little you value me and my time. My mother began to cry softly, which would normally have been my cue to backtrack, apologize, and do whatever was needed to restore peace. Instead, I sat quietly waiting. My father cleared his throat. Perhaps we all need to take a step back here. Samantha has made her decision, and while the timing is unfortunate, we should respect it. Are you serious? Catherine turned to him incredulously. You're taking her side. I'm not taking sides, he said. But it sounds like we've been unfair to your sister for quite some time without realizing it. I should go, I said, standing up. I want to get to the resort before it gets too late. Please don't leave like this, my mother pleaded. We can work this out. I'm not leaving angry, Mom, I said gently. But I am leaving. We can talk more when I get back. I called the children back in to open their presents from me. Despite the tension among the adults, their delight in the carefully chosen gifts temporarily lifted the heavy atmosphere. I hugged each of them tightly, explained about my special trip using the notes I'd prepared, and promised to video chat the next day. As I gathered my coat and purse, my siblings made last attempts to change my mind, alternating between guilt trips and bargaining. My mother hugged me at the door, whispering, I'm sorry we made you feel undervalued, sweetheart. It was the first genuine apology I'd received, and it nearly broke my resolve. But as I walked to my car, I saw James on his phone through the window, no doubt already trying to secure alternative childcare for their ski trip. I drove away from my parents' house with mixed emotions swirling in my chest: guilt, grief, and uncertainty. but also a profound sense of having stood up for myself in a way I never had before. As the familiar streets gave way to the highway that would take me to the mountain resort, I felt something else too. Freedom. I awoke on Christmas morning to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains. For a disorienting moment, I couldn't remember where I was. Then it all came flooding back, the confrontation, the drive to the resort, checking into my cozy cabin well after dark. The cabin was everything the website had promised: rustic but comfortable, with a small kitchenette, a living area centered around a stone fireplace, and a bedroom with a king-size bed piled high with quilts. Through the window, I could see fresh snow had fallen overnight, covering the pines in pristine white. It was beautiful, peaceful, and completely unlike any Christmas morning I'd experienced in my adult life. Typically, I'd be at my parents' house by now, helping my mother prepare breakfast while the children tore through their stockings. The thought sent a pang of guilt through me. Had I overreacted, made a terrible mistake? I reached for my phone, bracing myself for the barrage of messages I expected to find. They were there, just as I'd anticipated. Mom, Merry Christmas, sweetheart. We miss you. The kids keep asking where you are. Dad, your mother's upset. Call when you can. Catherine, way to ruin Christmas, Sam. The kids are devastated. James, hope your solo Christmas is worth disappointing 5 children. Real mature. Rebecca, the twins cried when they realized you weren't coming. The guilt hit me like a physical blow. Had I been selfish? Had I punished the children for their parents' behavior? I was about to call my mother when another text came through from Catherine. Catherine, B2, we had to cancel our ski trip because someone bailed on babysitting. Thanks for nothing. And just like that, the guilt evaporated, replaced by clarity. They still didn't get it. They were still framing this as me failing to fulfill an obligation rather than them trying to take advantage of me. They had never actually asked me to watch the children. They had planned to manipulate me into it, yet they were acting as if I had broken a promise. I put the phone down without responding and made myself a cup of coffee. The resort had provided a small Christmas welcome basket with pastries, which I took to the armchair by the window. As I watched the snow gently falling, I allowed myself to simply be present in this moment rather than worrying about everyone else's feelings. By mid-morning, the emotional roller coaster had stabilized enough for me to send simple Merry Christmas texts to my parents and siblings, along with a note that I'd call the children in the afternoon. Then I bundled up in my warmest clothes and ventured outside to explore the resort. The main lodge was decorated beautifully for Christmas, with a massive tree in the center of the lobby and garlands draped along the railings. A fire roared in the stone fireplace and holiday music played softly. Despite being a last-minute booking, I wasn't the only solo traveler. The resort staff had organized activities throughout the day for guests, including a guided snowshoe hike that I joined on impulse. Our guide, a cheerful man named Patrick, led our small group through snow-covered trails, pointing out wildlife tracks and sharing the history of the area. The physical exertion and beautiful scenery cleared my head in a way I hadn't experienced in years. First time here for Christmas? Asked an older woman who had fallen into step beside me. Her name tag from the morning introduction read, Eleanor. Is it that obvious? I smiled. You have that look, she said kindly. Like you're both relieved and guilty at the same time. I remember it well. You've done the solo Christmas thing before. She nodded, her breath visible in the cold air. 10 years ago was my first. My children had grown accustomed to me hosting every holiday and catering to their every need. When I suggested rotating houses or even going to a restaurant one year, you'd have thought I'd suggested canceling Christmas entirely. So what happened? I asked, curious about this woman who seemed to have walked my path before. I booked myself a cruise, she said with a mischievous smile. Turned off my phone for a week. There was quite the drama when I returned, let me tell you. But the next year, my daughter offered to host Thanksgiving. My son took Easter, and now we rotate Christmas too. They learned, I said, more to myself than to her. People don't appreciate what they have until they face the prospect of losing it, Eleanor said. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for everyone is to value yourself enough to set boundaries. Her words stayed with me through the rest of the hike and into the afternoon. After warming up with hot chocolate in the lodge, I returned to my cabin to call my nieces and nephews as promised. Catherine answered, her voice clipped. "Hold on, I'll put you on speaker for the kids." Despite her obvious anger, the children's excitement at hearing from me was genuine. They took turns telling me about their presents from Santa, with little Zoe babbling happily in the background. I told them about the snow at the resort and promised to show them pictures when I returned. Just as we were saying goodbye, Emily said something that caught me off guard. "Thank you for my special art kit, Aunt Sam, and thank you for the note." I didn't know grown-ups could take vacations by themselves. It was such a small thing, but it hit me with unexpected force. I had always worried about disappointing the children, but what if my constant capitulation was teaching them unhealthy patterns? What if seeing me stand up for myself was actually a valuable lesson for them? As promised, I texted photos of the resort to each of the children through their parents' phones. James responded with a curt, "Thanks," but a few minutes later, my phone lit up with an unexpected message from Max via Rebecca's phone. A picture he'd drawn of what looked like me building a snowman, with the wobbly handwritten caption, "Merry Christmas, Aunt Sam." My heart squeezed with love for these children who were innocent in all this. I saved the picture immediately, treasuring this connection that remained untainted by adult complications. The resort served a traditional Christmas dinner in the main lodge that evening. I found myself seated at a table with other solo travelers, a leaner from the hike, a man named David whose flight home had been cancelled due to weather, and a young woman named Jasmine who explained she was taking a break from family drama. To finding peace in unexpected places, David proposed a toast, raising his glass of wine. And to setting boundaries, a leaner added with a wink my way. As we shared stories over roast turkey and cranberry sauce, I realized I wasn't experiencing the lonely Christmas I had feared. Instead, I was connecting with new people, learning their stories, and sharing pieces of mine, all without the weight of expectations and obligations that had become so intertwined with family gatherings. When I returned to my cabin that night, I found a surprising text from my father. "Dad, your mother and I have been talking. We owe you an apology. Not just for this Christmas, but for taking you for granted for too long. We love you, Samantha. Enjoy your well-deserved break, and we'll talk when you return." It wasn't a complete resolution, but it was a start. For the first time, someone in my family had acknowledged the pattern without making excuses. As I sat by the fire in my cabin, watching the flames dance and listening to the wind in the pines, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. This wasn't the Christmas I had planned or expected, but maybe it was the Christmas I needed, a Christmas where I finally recognized my own worth and demanded that others do the same. 3 days after Christmas, I returned home with mixed emotions. The time at the resort had been restorative in ways I hadn't anticipated. I'd slept deeply, read books by the fire, taken long walks in the snow, and even tried cross-country skiing for the first time. More importantly, I'd had space to think about what I wanted from my relationships going forward. The day after my return, Catherine texted asking if she could stop by. I agreed with some trepidation, unsure whether she was coming to extend an olive branch or to continue berating me for ruining Christmas. When I opened my apartment door, I was surprised to find her alone, no children in tow, which was unusual for weekday visits when she typically used me as entertainment for at least one child while running errands. "I brought coffee," she said, holding up a carrier with 2 cups. Her expression was hard to read, somewhere between embarrassed and defensive. I invited her in and we settled on the couch with an awkward silence between us. "The kids miss you," she finally said. "They keep asking when they'll see Aunt Sam again." "I miss them too," I replied honestly. "I'd love to see them soon." Catherine nodded, then took a deep breath. "Look, about Christmas, maybe we got a little carried away with the whole babysitting plan." It wasn't quite an apology, but it was closer than I'd expected. "A little," I couldn't help asking. She had the grace to flush. "Okay, more than a little." It was inconsiderate. It wasn't just inconsiderate, Catherine, I said gently. It was hurtful. You all talked about me like my time doesn't matter because I don't have children. Like I'm just a resource for you to use when convenient. Catherine stared into her coffee cup. I never thought of it that way, she said quietly. I guess I've been so overwhelmed with the kids and work and everything. I started seeing everyone in terms of what they could do for me rather than as people with their own lives. I understand being overwhelmed, I assured her. I would have helped if you'd asked me directly. I've always loved spending time with the kids, but being manipulated and taken for granted made me feel worthless. You're not worthless, Catherine said quickly. Not at all. You're the sister who's always been there for me, even when I didn't deserve it. She looked up, meeting my eyes. I'm sorry, Sam. Really sorry. The apology, simple but seemingly sincere, loosened something that had been tight in my chest since Christmas Eve. Thank you, I said. That means a lot. We talked for nearly 2 hours, more openly than we had in years. Catherine admitted that she sometimes envied my freedom and career success, which had translated into taking me for granted. I confessed that I sometimes felt invisible in the family, defined only by my usefulness rather than my personhood. When she left, we had made plans for me to take Emily to an art museum the following weekend, just the two of us. A special outing with her artistic aunt. James was less direct in his approach to reconciliation. He called a few days after Catherine's visit, ostensibly to ask a technical question about his computer. After I'd walked him through the solution, he cleared his throat awkwardly. So, Rebecca and I were talking, he began. We realized we may have been presumptuous about your time, especially during the holidays. That's one word for it, I said, not making it easy for him. Yeah, well, he fumbled. The thing is, we're sorry. It wasn't fair to you, and it wasn't fair to the kids to put that kind of pressure on you either. Coming from my proud older brother, this halting apology was significant. I accepted it gracefully, and by the end of the call, we had made tentative plans for dinner the following week. My parents invited me over for Sunday lunch in early January. The house felt different without the Christmas decorations and the chows of children, quieter, more intimate. My mother hugged me tightly at the door, whispering another apology in my ear. Over homemade soup and fresh bread, we had the most honest conversation I could remember having with my parents in my adult life. We failed you, my father said, uncharacteristically emotional. We've been so focused on the grandchildren and supporting James and Catherine as parents that we forgot you need support too, just in different ways. We're proud of you, Samantha, my mother added. Of your career, your independence, the life you've built, and we're sorry if we haven't shown that enough. Or if we've made you feel like your worth is tied to what you can do for everyone else, my father finished. Their words, so closely aligned with what I'd been feeling, brought tears to my eyes. Thank you, I managed. I needed to hear that. In the weeks that followed, small but significant changes appeared in our family dynamic. Catherine began texting before asking for favors, with clear acknowledgement that I could say no. James invited me to lunch near my office just to catch up on my work projects. My mother called regularly just to chat, without immediately launching into reports about the grandchildren or requests for help with family events. The most meaningful change, however, was in my relationships with my nieces and nephews. Rather than being the default childcare provider, I became more intentional about spending quality time with each of them individually. I took Max to a robotics workshop where we built simple machines together. Me and I started a 2-person book club, reading the same chapter books and discussing them over hot chocolate. Emily and I visited art museums and tried new techniques in my apartment, which I'd set up with a small art corner just for her visits. Lucas and I embarked on backyard astronomy with his new telescope, learning the constellations together. Even little Zoe got special, Aunt Sam time, at the local children's museum. These one-on-one outings allowed me to develop deeper relationships with each child based on their interests and personalities, rather than just being the adult responsible for keeping them all entertained and safe while their parents were elsewhere. By the time New Year's Eve arrived, our family gathering felt noticeably different. There was still chows and noise and the occasional meltdown from children and adults alike, but there was also a new awareness. When James asked if I could watch the twins while he and Rebecca stepped outside for a moment, he added, "Only if you're not busy, and just for 10 minutes or so." It was a small thing, but it represented a seismic shift in how my family viewed my time and autonomy. As midnight approached and the children were put to bed by their parents, the adults gathered in the living room with champagne. "I'd like to propose a toast," my father said, raising his glass. "To family, not just the family we were born into or created through marriage and children, but the family we actively choose to be every day through respect, consideration, and love." "To family," we echoed, glasses clinking. Catherine caught my eye across the room and mouthed, "Thank you." I smiled back, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the champagne. The journey hadn't been easy or comfortable. Standing up for myself had caused temporary hurt and disruption, but it had also cleared the way for more authentic, balanced relationships with the people I loved most in the world. As I drove home that night, I reflected on the unexpected gift that had come from that painful moment of overhearing my family's conversation before Christmas. In their careless words, I had found the catalyst for change that had been needed for years. In my hurt and anger, I had found the courage to advocate for myself, and in the aftermath, we had all found a path to greater understanding and respect. Sometimes the most valuable presents don't come wrapped in pretty paper under a Christmas tree. Sometimes they come disguised as painful moments that force us to grow, to speak our truth, and to insist on being valued for who we are, not just what we can do for others. That Christmas had taught me that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary for healthy relationships, that my time and needs matter just as much as anyone else's, and that true family love means seeing each person as a whole human being with their own dreams, desires, and dignity. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who took you for granted? How did you handle it? Drop a comment below sharing your experience. Your story might help someone else finding the courage to stand up for themselves. Don't forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you, and share it with someone who might need to hear this message today. Remember, you deserve to be valued for who you are, not just what you can do for others. Thank you for spending this time with me, and may all your relationships be based on mutual respect and genuine love.